back, everybody. The pro-life movement has so many new, energetic voices and activists changing this country day by day. And one of them, we're lucky, is joining us right now. Seth Gruber from the White Rose Resistance is here with us. Seth, love what you're doing. Everybody's getting excited about what you've been able to do in this country.
Thank you, brother.
What do you see coming out of this election for the pro-life movement?
Yeah, so there's been polling on this already, as you've seen as well, and it does seem that abortion was a top tier issue for the left that drove them to the polls, which it usually doesn't, right? It's usually things that more directly impact your life, right? Whether that's the safety of your neighborhoods or the gas prices or what's it called now, Bidenflation, right?
Yeah, Bidenflation,
it's usually those kind of issues. It's not usually abortion, but I think Roe v. Wade getting overturned upset I call it the spirit of the age and his acolytes, just to be clear, but the secular progressive moral revolutionaries, right? For whom abortion is a sacrament. It's a core centerpiece of really the entire secular progressive moral revolution. That goes back to Margaret Sanger, that goes back to Thomas Malthus in the 1800s, this idea of overpopulation, too many people, eugenics, kill the babies, the poor. So this is a long train of ideas. And so I think Roe v. Wade getting overturned was just one move too far for these revolutionaries, and so they lost their freaking mind. And so I think that's kind of what drove them to the polls. But on the opposite side, we kind of saw a lot of governors winning victories who had stood very firm on the issue of life, whether that was DeSantis, Kevin Stitt, that there were several others. I wrote them down here. Brian Kemp, of course, who was very solid on pro-life. Greg Abbott here in Texas. Also Kay Ivey, who didn't go as far enough for some pro-lifers, but was still quite firm on her Human Life Protection Act in 2019. New Hampshire Governor Chris, how do you say it? Sununu. Sununu, I said it right. He only banned abortions after 24 weeks, which is still heinous to allow that many late-term babies to be killed, but won against the Democratic nominee. So a lot of gubernatorial elections were won by conservatives and pro-lifers who had been pretty firm on the pro-life issue. So I think you said earlier, it kind of split both ways. Yeah. So that was kind of interesting to see. But this culture war, I think, is just getting started on the issue of life with the overturning of Roe.
Where does it go next? I think when you look at Dr. Oz's performance in Pennsylvania, a little bit of waffling there, and it probably hurt him. You see some of the evangelicals don't come out. What is the biggest lesson for conservative and liberal candidates to take from this election about issues of life? Yeah,
well, I think for conservatives, it's to triple down, to hit back twice as hard and to not pull your punches, and to insist on healthy standards. You know, I mean, it doesn't take me to tell you this, brother, but Democrats in the 1960s and 70s would be ultra MAGA Republicans today.
It's true.
They would be smeared by the White House press secretary as ultra MAGA, whatever that means, whatever they're trying to do with that one. Because most Democrats in the 60s and 70s were pro-life.
They were.
And so isn't that fascinating?
It is
that
fascinating.
If they just jumped in a time machine with Marty McFly and the DeLorean and came out in DC in 2022, they'd be like, why is my party calling me a domestic terrorist just because I'm pro-life? I mean, the FBI has arrested over 11 pro-lifers in the last 6 weeks.
It's crazy, isn't it?
For allegedly violating the freedom of access to clinic entrances. They didn't really at all. It's wicked what's happening. In my opinion, this is Attorney General Merrick Garland's revenge fury war against all the conservatives that kept him from getting a seat on the highest court in the land. Let's all remember that. He's behind these arresting of pro-lifers. And so I think it's very important for us to understand that if we don't get this issue right, we are abandoning the entire culture war. And so this is what I try to say to squishy moderate pro-lifers who they do want abortion legal to a certain point. I want to tell them what Reagan said in his book, Abortion and the Conscience of a Nation, after he became pro-life and regretted his pro-abortion policies in California. And in that book, he has a compelling short line, and I want to share it with you and your listeners. He says, Abraham Lincoln recognized that we could not survive as a free nation as long as some men could decide that others are not fit to be free and should therefore become slaves. Then Reagan said, likewise, we cannot survive as a free nation today as long as some men can decide that others are not fit to live and should therefore be abandoned to abortion and infanticide. So there is no cause more important than affirming than the transcendent right to life of all human beings, the right without which no other rights have any meanings. So if we were to paraphrase Reagan today, we might say, if you don't get the right to life right, you won't get any other rights right. right?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental right.
He might have said it just that way, too.
It wasn't a coincidence that our founders put the right to life first. That wasn't just a coinkydink. They understood what they were doing. The right to liberty, pursuit of happiness, and property don't mean much. In fact, they mean nothing at all if you can be killed. And so as long as our government continues to deny the natural right to life to an entire class of human beings, our own rights will constantly be endangered by modern jurists and a ruling class whose jurisprudence is completely foreign to the founding fathers.
We're heading into right out of well, this election isn't even over yet, but it soon will be over, we hope. We're going to head right into the 2024 election. What is the issues and how does life and abortion play in the next 2 years with so many states going to be taking actions and litigation playing out in the courts? Where do you think it plays in the election?
Well, firstly, I wish Clarence Thomas had gone I wish that the court had gone the Clarence Thomas route and gone the whole way and appealed to the personhood protections of every human being in the Constitution as the legal argument for the overturning of abortion at the federal level. If you are a conservative and you want to live by any mantle of the term conservative, you must support a federal ban on abortion in all 50 states from the moment of conception. If it's a human being, it's a person, and it has a right to life. And so Clarence Thomas was the only justice, unfortunately, that wanted to go the whole way. And fully, not just overturn Roe, but fully ban it at the federal level. So we need more people with the jurisprudence of Clarence Thomas. But in the meantime, we fight at the state level. We get the right people elected. And I think we're learning through the DeSantis season that we're living in that that's the future of the GOP. And if it doesn't become the future of the GOP will cease to be a relevant party in this country.
Pretty important words to remember as we head into this. Seth, what a great opportunity to have you here at this amazing event in Texas.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for what you do.
Amen.
It's amazing stuff.
You too.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll be wrapping things up just right after this.